He represents New India, and he's a fantastic player himself, and he's got a lot of fine cricketers around him. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Nicholas, and this is Outside Edge. The fourth Test match is over. India dominant on the final, or what proved to be the final day's play. We'll look at every angle from it. Steve Harmison is alongside me. We'll hear from Akash Chopra over in India, and also both the captains, Virat Kohli and Joe Root. Remember, if you're liking the show, make sure you subscribe.
Here is Ashwin again. Bowled him! Dan Lawrence has a swing at Ashwin, and he's bowled him for 50. Fine rearguard innings from Lawrence, but England have been bowled out for just 135. India win by an innings and 25 runs to wrap up the series by 3 Test matches to 1.
Well, the day hadn't begun well for England, never mind end well, because they couldn't get rid of Akshar Patel and Washington Sundar, or rather couldn't split the partnership for a long time. It was only when they finally ran out Akshar for 40 odd, it meant that they could get into the last 2 batsmen, and Ben Stokes did that brilliantly, getting rid of both Ishant Sharma and Mohammad Siraj, so much so that Washington Sundar, who was 96 not out, never got to face another ball, and he ended 96 not out. England got to lunch 6 for no wicket, but Steve, in the afternoon session, it all fell apart. It
did all fall apart, and it looked as though it was a tame end to England. Looked tired, they looked beat, there was a few scars from the way, and I think that was just relentless from the way India performed, the way the both spinners bowled, and they were the dominant force. You look at Akshar Patel and Ravi Ashwin, took more wickets between them than the whole England side, and I think that tells you the dominance and the difference between the two sides. But Washington Sundar played beautifully yesterday and again today. But I've just wondered if England have unearthed a little gem there, because we've got Ollie Pope, and a lot of people talk about how good Ollie Pope is. But Dan Lawrence, 46 in the first innings, got out when he was running out of partners. Got 50 in this innings, got out running out of partners. So if there's any positives to come out of it, the great Jimmy Anderson, the way he bowled, Ben Stokes admirably with the ball, but I think Dan Lawrence has performed very, very well, and he can be happy with his performance in this Test match.
We make no bones about the quality of the Indian spinners, but does English cricket have a general problem with batting? Are we over-reliant on Joe Root and then bursts of brilliance from Ben Stokes?
Yeah, I think we are. We can have as much conversation as you want about the selection and rotation and whatever. I think England's problem always has been the top of the order losing early wickets, and our ability to play spin. Joe Root went into this series probably, I believe, the best player of spin on show on both sides. Nothing in India's top order or India's top 6 showed me that he's not, because of the way he performed in the first innings and the double 100 he got. But I think England do struggle technically against the ball, the slow bowlers, and it's going to be interesting to see how them slow bowlers come when we fast forward it to England. But England can't win Test matches if they are consistently putting their captain in a position where he keeps going in without 50 runs on the board, 2 down. It's just, I think that is England's problem against seam and against spin.
There have been some heavy defeats here, and Joe Root obviously feels the weight of expectation on his own batting, but also on the need for the team to perform better, yet he's compromised by the rest and rotation policy, by the need for adhering to a sensible use of the bubble so that people don't spend too long in quarantine and people get a break away from the game. Is this compromising the England cricket team at large?
I think it is, to an extent. I think it's the detrimental effect of the Test match team. It'd be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out over the course of 6 months. I have to trust Ashley Giles and Chris Silverwood and Ed Smith when they say it's for the mental health well-being over a long period of time. This is the planning they've got and they've seen. They want the best team possible for the World T20 and for the Ashes. I don't think, from a mental health point of view, yes, great. I think it's the right thing to do. But from a planning point of view of what they're missing, I just think the best team should have been there for the whole of the India trip to give them the best chance. Would they have made a difference in one? Probably not. But I just look at this whole situation and think, you know what, we've put a lot of faith in young players. Hopefully their education will get better. But I still think England's selection in ECB are letting Joe Root down. And that probably caused a headline. But I think they are letting Joe Root down, because I don't think Joe Root is going to get his best 11 to pick from and have a good go and get used to that 11 until Brisbane. And I think if that's the case, then I don't think England stand a hope of winning the Ashes.
Right, well that's a very interesting point, because prior to then, of course, we've got a home series against New Zealand and a 5-test home, that's 2 tests against New Zealand, and a 5-test home series against India. So if you think they're not going to get to their best team until Brisbane, which is probably late November, December time, that's a great worry, Harmy. Let's not touch on the one-day game here. Let's just stick for a moment on Test cricket, because this will all wash over. 2 months will pass, the county season will get underway. A few guys like Sibley and Crawley and Burns and people will make runs, and they'll be choosing a side to beat New Zealand in early June. England are formidable at home, and this tour won't change that.
No, it won't change that, and England will be every bit the way role reverse from England going to India.
Do you think it's as big an advantage as that? I think it's a bigger advantage for India to play in India than it is for England to play in England.
I just mean by the favourites is heavily weighted into England's favour at home. England are a formidable unit at home, but one thing I will say is I don't think there's a squad of whichever they bring, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 players from India, as good as that group will be to come to the British Isles in the middle of our summer than there has been over the course of the last 5-10 years. I think this is a very, very good India side. I think it's a very, very good India squad. They've got a lot of to pick from, and it'll be interesting to see how England go with that. And
who's winning the 5-test series between England and India in England?
A lot comes down to what England play and how England play. I still think they've got a huge question mark on how they get all their players into a batting unit. Look, I've always been a big advocate for Joe Root batting at 3. It's never going to happen. Me and Martin Butcher have just had a disagreement on the Following On podcast. But when I look at it, I like Pope. I love Pope. I think he's a smashing player. Stokes has to play. Lawrence has just shown, batting at number 7, that this kid's got something. How do I get them all in that unit? You're asking either Ollie Pope or Dan Lawrence to bat at number 3. I think that might be a tough ask against the Duke ball. But if that's the only place in your side, unfortunately, as a selector, you're saying, right, you go in at number 3.
You haven't answered my question, Harmy.
Who do I think is going to win? I think England will win. I really do. I think England will win. I don't think it'll be as easy as what India have just won against England. But I think if Joe Root gets his team and what he wants, and England's best 11 goes out there, which is a big if, then I think England will win. If England compromise that, then I think if India get off to a good start, we could be behind the 8 ball. But England's best 11 against India's best 11 in English conditions, over 5 test matches, I still back that to the England cricket team.
You've heard Steve's thoughts on India and how strong they are in depth, and I think it's a fair point. These 2 spinners have been outstanding, Ashwin and Akshar Patel. What a find, Akshar Patel, on the back of Ravi Jadeja's injury, and we thought Jadeja would pose a problem. I think the finger spinner's accuracy on these turning pitches has been a tremendous advantage to India. The close catching has been very good. I think the batting's been iffy. But there's no doubt this is a burgeoning Indian side. After the game, Ravi Shastri, the coach and former great player, said, this has been 6 years in the making. This hasn't happened overnight. So credit to India for their brilliant performance, which comes, remember, on the back of going to Australia, going 1-0 down after the first test in Brisbane, where they were bowled out for 36 in one innings, and going on to win that series against Australia in Australia. They followed that up by beating England and India. That's high quality cricket. 2 very different views from the captains at the end, of course. One of them a little morose, Joe Root, the other a little more animated, Virat Kohli. Here they both are.
I think the comeback pleased me the most. I think the first game was a bit of an aberration in the way that we play as a team, and that was just a hiccup, and I think England outplayed us. The toss became very crucial because of the way the pitch played in the first 2 days. I don't think the bowlers were in the contest at all. So from the next game onwards, it was more exciting cricket, and we got into the game early. Even in the second innings in Chennai, I think we bowled and fielded with a lot more intensity. So for me, the comeback was way more pleasing, and the way we batted in that second test match in Chennai.
I think credit has to go to India. I think they've played very, very well. I think their spinners have been extremely accurate. They've exploited the conditions. And they've asked difficult questions of our batters. And at times we've not managed that well enough. But there have also been times where it's been very much in their favour. And I think as a whole, as a balance, we just have to keep looking to get better. It's as simple as that. We haven't quite been up to the mark. We certainly haven't been able to match them in these last 3 games. But this winter, we've proven that we can perform in Asia and in India. So it is an inexperienced side in many ways. And we have to learn. That's the most important thing we take from this tour, is that we have to learn.
Well, poignant, of course, Joe Root, who does feel, I mentioned it earlier, has to feel the weight of expectation on his own play and on the team that he's been captaining for some time now. And you can almost feel it in his voice. He's mentally tired, and it's a difficult time, and to lose heavily consecutively is difficult. Virat Kohli up and buoyant, and why wouldn't he be? What a job he's done for India. He's definitely toughened them up. He represents new India, and he's a fantastic player himself, and he's got a lot of fine cricketers around him. How do we rate them? Well, we can rabbit away all day, but we have to hear it from someone who's much nearer to the horse's mouth, so to speak. Here's our man, Akash Chopra.
This victory, a test series win without Virat Kohli. I'm just re-emphasizing on that fact. Without Virat Kohli scoring a single century, or Pujara or Rahane, and no Ravindra Jadeja, no Mohammad Shami, and if you end up still on the winning side after losing a couple of tosses, I think this will hold this team in a very good stead. I think India is on the cusp of an era of domination, an era where they'll go overseas, they'll play at home, and they'll win everywhere.
A good man, that Akash. He's full of colour and fun. His view, he's a great studier of the game, so I think his view is worth taking in. It's been, oddly, we get up very early in the morning to go on air at 3:45, which sounds a bit brutal day after day. It is, but of course it's been interrupted on a number of occasions because the games have finished early, so we've got away quite late. But it's been fun. We've had a good team, and broadcasting. People ask me, what's it like to broadcast from London on a series in India? And though it's not the same as being there, you can't quite feel and if you like, illustrate the vibe or explain the vibe, which is so unique in India. I mean, completely different from anywhere else in the world. So that's been a miss. But actually, we've had quite good fun in that studio, 17 floors up here in London, haven't we?
We have. We've had some great fun, and we've had some disagreements. And I think that's the beauty about this team. Some people, have got a range of opinions. I've fallen out with, not fallen out, I've had disagreements with Darren Gough many times. We had Kevin Peterson for a test match for a day and a half, which was brilliant to get the inside, especially talking about spin. Matt Pryor, the way he talked about the wicket keeping, and even the following on podcast there tonight. Me and Mark Butcher had a disagreement on the way that the batting unit is. That's what broadcasting is about. It is different. I haven't had the level of experience of doing it overseas. I've only had a couple, and it's great when you're in the ground, but sometimes it is nice to be different. But the one person who I think has made a big difference to our team, Mark, and that is having a man in Mumbai. I think Akash has been brilliant, and the insight he gives and what he's given on the ground, I think is fantastic. So I think all in all, as much as it's disappointing, you want to stay sort of central, but you are biased towards England. I think we've done a pretty good job, and it's been very, very much enjoyable, and I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to it.
Better than pretty good. We've done an outstanding job. So India, the winners by an innings and 25, taking the series by 3-1. I'm going to leave you with this thought. These things are hard to bowl. To do so under pressure creates enormous mental stress. On last night's Following On podcast, having discussed the problems that Dom Bess has had to face in the last few days, Steve and Darren Gough gave us the most fascinating insight into the mental side of bowling for England under pressure, how hard it is and how you tend to respond when things don't go your way. You retreat inside yourself. Believe me, that's the March the 5th Following On podcast. Have a listen to Steve and Goughy go right inside the game of cricket. That's it from us, Steve. Thank you. Thank you to all of our team in this building here. I hope you've enjoyed our sessions here on Outside Edge. Remember to like and to subscribe. Goodbye.